Hello and welcome to Autocar's best handling car of 2006. We've got Alton Park Circuit, the UK's best racing circuit, to ourselves. We've got a whole day, and as you can see we've got some fantastic metal to test. There'll only be one winner, there'll be lap times on every single car, there'll be plenty of this, and even more of this, and at the end of the day there will be just one winner.
Off limits, because we'll get punctures.
First there was the Mini, then there was the Mini Cooper, then the Mini Cooper S, then the Mini Cooper S Works, and now there is the Mini Cooper S Works GP, I think that's what they call it. More power, about 220 odd, less weight, no rear seats as you might be able to see around here, just a great big strut brace between the rear suspension turrets. So we've got a load more stiffness. We've got no differential in the front, but we have got slightly sticky tyres, and on reports so far today it's been very, very quick, so we'll go and give it a go. Right, if we're quick, we can follow the Cayman out, and we're in the Mini Cooper S Works GP. The badge tells me it's number 444 out of a limited edition of 2000. Doesn't sound very limited, does it, 2000? Anyhow, let's give it a go. We can turn the DSC off because that's a bit of a pain. Cayman uses its horsepower to get away from us initially. I'll adjust my seat a bit. There we go. And then we're down into Cascades for the first time. Steering on these Minis is so quick. You always tip into the corner, you find yourself putting on about 20 degrees more lock than you intended to. Okay. Doesn't oversteer as much on a trailing throttle as the Clio does, but it's still nicely adjustable. You can, if you're washing a little bit wide, you can back off the gas, and it just brings the nose in quick enough for you not to worry. It doesn't understeer. Minis have always been like this. They've never really understeered much. We can also use a bit of curb. Very agile car. Little bit of oversteer if we back off, but not much. Cayman's probably just taken about 4 car lengths out of us up the hill, but if we stay on it through Druids, I think we'll probably have some of that back. No, it's a slightly annoying engine though. It sounds like they've got a slightly mewling child under the bonnet actually, rather than a supercharger. But it pulls really well in the mid-range, and whereas the Clio is always struggling for a bit of grunt coming out of the corner, this car is just superb. The Mini just pulls and pulls and pulls. You do have to be a bit brutal with the understeer and just ride it out though. It's not the most satisfying way to get around a lap, but it's very quick. I mean, you can't see the Cayman in front of me, but I can tell you that we're pretty much pegging him now, largely because we can just throw the car into turns. We're up to about 106, 107 turning into Highland. Just managing the understeer. Hook up the front of the car. When you do find yourself asking why anyone would want to bother with a 220 horsepower Mini with no back seats and still with a toy town interior, but the fact that we're hacking along here
not really being dropped by a 295 horsepower Porsche probably goes some way to explaining that. Seats could do a bit more support, I have to say. They look the business from the outside, but I'm slopping around in them a bit. The Clio has the better seats of the two. But no, a curiously impressive track car. I just can't see who's going to buy one to use on a track, I have to say. But if they do, they'll really enjoy it. Really good fun, this car. It's got a great front end on it. You can carry so much speed. No, just a really interesting piece of kit. I thought it was going to be complete folly, actually. I couldn't understand why they'd done it, what the point of it was, etc, etc. But it makes for a really entertaining car around here, although I struggle to see how many of them will be coming to do track work at Alton Park, but there we go. On the day at Alton, with no rear seats, a strut base, a load of power and good suspension, it's a fantastic car. There's a school of thought that the Porsche 911 is ultimately a flawed design because its engine sits behind the rear axle. However, Porsche have built a car recently with the engine in between the axle and the seats. It's called the Cayman. We've got one here. We've also got a 911 Turbo here, and everyone's saying so far today that the Cayman is a nicer car to drive than 911 Turbo. Can't believe that's true, so we might as well try and find out anyway. Well, I'm sure Porsche won't thank me for saying this, but one of the strange things about all the cars they make now is that you get into a £48,000 Cayman S like this, and the cabin really, to all intents and purposes, feels exactly the same and looks exactly the same to the one on the £117,000 911 Turbo I just got out of. I suppose that means it's good luck for the Cayman S buyer and rather bad luck for the 911 Turbo buyer. Okay, we'll have our sport button on and our dampers on. We'll turn the traction control off because that just gets in the way. We've still got ABS brakes though. Got 295 horsepower flat six. It's amazing how race circuits just sap power from cars. You look at the number on the sheet, on the spec, and you think, God, that's a fast car. Claim 0 to 60 time of 5.5 seconds, 170 miles an hour. You drive it at the pits and you think, come on, where's the power? So we're up to about indicated 110 before we take third gear going into Ireland. First thing you notice about this car compared to the 911 is it doesn't understeer as much, and it's just a much easier car to put into the corner. Whereas in the 911 you're always managing all that mass out behind you. In the Cayman, you just think about what you want to do, you turn the wheel that way and it does it for you. It's also quite a bit more forgiving, but I don't buy into this whole, oh, you can just bung it at any corner, because I've tried that before and you end up looking the wrong way. Sounds fantastic. It sounds better than the 911 Turbo, of course. It doesn't have a turbocharger sucking all that intake noise away. Into second. Car turns really well into the chicane. Not an easy chicane to tip a road car into, this. So we're full power in second, backing off into the second part. Little bit of a twitch on the exit, but car doesn't have a limited slip differential, so it's unlikely to give us a big slide. Up into fourth, through the left before Druids. Hard on the brakes, we'll take third, miss that first apex, hit the second one. Oh, the car is just superb through there. Gives you so much confidence. Into fourth, we're registering 106 before we turn in. Try second into Lodge. Probably could do with third there maybe. Oh no, it's pulling quite well. Up through third. At the start finish straight. Feels plenty quick enough to me, this car. People say that it's not quick enough, but if you can't enjoy yourself in one of these, I don't know what you can enjoy yourself in, really. What a cracking car this is. I'd be very surprised if this doesn't win this car. It's fantastic. Okay, so the truth is that, in simple terms, the Cayman S is a better handling car than any 911.
ever made, because its engine's in the right place, its mass is in the right place. It's a more helpful car, and in many ways it's a car that communicates better than the 911. It's not as much of a challenge to drive, it's a different car to drive. But every time I drive one of these, I just have this feeling that I'd love to know all the answers to the what ifs. What if it had 500 horsepower and the same engine as a 911 turbo? What if it had a limited slip differential? What if it had all of these things? What if they tried to apply all of their engineering know-how to the Cayman body shell and to the Cayman layout rather than the 911? I think it would be a mind-blowing car. Perhaps they don't do it because they think it would be unfair on the opposition. Now, you've probably been reading a lot recently about the Clio 197, and much of it will say that the car's gone a bit soft, and how the old Clio 172 and the 182 and even the Trophy, the last one they made, was a bit more exciting. I think that's absolute Tommy rot, I have to say, and I'll try and prove it by driving this car, the new 197, for one lap around Alton Park.
You need to have hands like a rock ape to be able to get your hands around the steering wheel of a Clio 197. It is enormously thick. Much like the M Coupe we have here as well. I don't know who designs these things. Men with big hands, I presume. Another thing you notice about this car is, can you see from the video? Yes, you can. It's got the optional sports seats in it, which do feel rather good, although I think the standard seats are corking in this car as well. Renault responding to about 10 years of criticism of the fact that you couldn't actually drive the Clio properly because you couldn't get comfortable in the bloody thing. Anyhow, main criticism today of this car has been that the gearing's a bit wrong round here. A bit too short, and that it's lacked a bit of mid-range. Certainly I was following Steve Sutcliffe earlier, and I was in the Mini GP, and on the straights I could pull out quite a big advantage on him, or rather I could close the gap significantly. The one thing you have to get beyond in this Clio is steering feel. It doesn't have an awful lot of steering feel. It's an electric assisted rack, and that means that it doesn't really give you an awful lot back. But at speed, it's much better than when it's slow. And as a lot more comes back at you through the rim. And the fact is, it's very accurate as well, so you know exactly where you are with the car on the circuit. Gearbox is good, not excellent. It's an improvement over the old car, but Renault still have an amazing ability to engineer these slightly vague gear shifts, don't they? Up through third, through fourth. We've got a lot of wheel travel here, so we'll give it a go over the curb. Really good through there. Oh, bit of oversteer. I'll also turn the traction control on. Might help, won't it? Okay, braking down into the chicane. Into second. Car turns in really well. Again, like the Mini, the front end's exactly where you want it. What I will say is it's got nothing like the grunt of the Mini though. Just where the supercharger boosts the mid-range of the Cooper S works GP, the Clio really struggles to drag itself out of corners. But it does have a really, really enjoyable chassis. Quite a lot of passive rear steer on it as well. I mean, it will oversteer quite easily for you. If you can compare it to anything, it just feels like a new version of the 306 Rally to me. Peugeot used to make some really exciting handling hatchbacks. They don't anymore, as we know. And having spoken to some engineers who worked on this project, they said quite openly they tried to copy what Peugeot was doing in the 80s. They liked the fact that back axle would move around. To me, it feels like a bit of a result. So there are two ways of driving it. You can either barrel in, back off the throttle and get a load of heroic oversteer, or you can just use the initial oversteer just to tuck the nose in a bit, as we have there, and then just keep on the gas and ride a little bit of understeer out. It's very quick. What I will say is that the chassis is that competent, it does expose the fact that it could do with a bit more grunt. There was talk of making a light pressure turbo engine for this and giving it a bit more poke, but in the end the team just wanted to have a normally aspirated engine that revved a lot. On the circuit you'd probably say that's a mistake, but then this isn't a track car, it's a road car, and it's really, really good on the road, and equally very good here. It's just a little bit underwhelming because of the lack of power. And you can hear by the fact that we're managing to heel and toe that they've actually made a decent pedal box for it as well. Revs are just a little bit short of 8,000. There's a shift light on the dash that helps me get the shift just about right. Brakes are really good. Really strong. They feel the strongest of all the hatchbacks here. There's no real fade. Again, over the leap, we're just suffering a lack of power. The Mini's almost 10 miles an hour quicker up here. On the brakes. Second apex. Car feels really, really good through here. Now I know I'm going to cause an argument here, but I think this is a cracking car. It's a little bit underpowered for the circuit. It could do with something in the mid-range, probably a light pressure turbocharger, ironically enough, given that they did think about putting one on in the first place, just to drag it out of the turns, because you have to rev it hard and there's not an awful lot of torque in the mid-range. But it just feels so adjustable, and you find yourself just tipping it at corners, and you can actually adjust the line, which you can't do in many front-wheel drive cars anymore. I think if Peugeot were still making hatchbacks the way they used to, they'd probably still be making this car.
And the braking points of the Caterham are almost identical as the MX-5, but you're reaching them at
Double the speed.
nearly twice the speed.
Okay, the problems we have with the DB9 normally is it's quite a heavy car around Alton Park, and we've got lots of bumps here. But earlier it felt pretty good. It's well damped. It's not rolling as much as the standard car, but it is very heavy, so you find yourself really struggling for brakes. So 3-4 laps is about the most, so we'll probably try 2 laps and see how we go and make sure we don't cook the brakes and the tyres. Okay, first things you notice about the DB9 Sport Pack is the controls are really quite heavy on this car. A lot of steering effort required, not as much as on the original launch car. That really was a Jeff Cape style car, that was. You had to be a monster to drive that. But if we just move the car around the pit lane and get used to the control weights. Mr. Ulrich Betts of Aston Martin, he loves these big heavy controls, and they do suit the car, but around here it can make the car feel a bit slow-witted, and in fairness it's a big old lump, the DB9. So what we'll do is we'll take the DSC off, now off, and we got some oil temperature, third into fourth, down through Cascades. What's impressive about this car is, despite the fact that it's a big old boat and sounds fantastic as you can hear, it doesn't understeer too much. Normally big heavy cars on racetracks they just nose plough, and they're really difficult to drive and they just become frustrating. But Aston's been quite brave with this car, and they've actually decided to dial out most of the understeer and just giving you a good limited slip differential so you can actually ride the car out on the back axle. Feels really, really special, I think. To me it feels like a well sorted, or an even better sorted 550 Maranello, the way that car used to feel before they spoilt it and made the 575. So we rev the engine out, we've got a shift light that tells us to shift at about 750, going up through about 110 miles an hour into the Knickerbocker chicane, down into second, just coax it round. Car doesn't want to understeer at all, but it does mean that the tail wants to come around quite a lot, having to just back out of the gas a bit. Over the leap, car feels really good through here. We've got Mr. Colin Goodwin in a 911 turbo on a cooling down lap, so we'll nip past him. into Druids, missed the first apex. Car's fantastic through here because it allows you to get back at that second apex. A little bit of oversteer on the exit, it's fine. About 112 miles an hour down into Lodge. Car turns in really well. Having no understeer means you can put the nose just where you want to get it. And that's a real surprise in something so big. This is Old Hall. Everything's really struggling through Old Hall today. It's such a difficult corner to get the nose into, but again, the Aston's in there. Bit of curb on the exit. Take the curb on the right into Cascades. Hard on the brakes. Again, we can get the car at the apex, wind the gas on, let the slip differential do its thing. And listen to the noise. It sounds fantastic, doesn't it? And it is quick. It's not quite 911 turbo quick, but you know, we're nudging 120 on the speedo into Island here. Gearbox is cracking as well. It's a little bit slow, but you know, it feels like a big GT this that's got a pair of running shoes on. Just enough sportiness in it. Trying to avoid the curbs at the chicane, they're just quite violent, these are. Okay, bit of oversteer there. It's a real temptation to get this thing drifting everywhere because it is just such a good back axle. So when we go into Knickerbrook chicane, we can probably just pull a bit of a drift there. And we'll have another one here. Over the leap again. This thing's a real hoot, and I didn't expect it at all. Well, I know it's early days yet, but this has to be the surprise of the day, this car. It's a real hoot, but most of it comes down to the fact that the engineers have been really aggressive with the setup, and they've just given us no understeer. It's not running a really aggressive tyre or anything special or trick like that. They've just dialed out a load of that safety understeer. It means the car can get quite big on you on the exit of turns, but you just feel really in control of the car because you can put it exactly where you want to in the corner, and you can judge the exit speed perfectly with the differential. It's a really impressive car. I suppose it's the car that one of the Astons should have been all along. Perhaps strange that it's turned out to be the DB9, which is the obvious GT car, because I'm used to driving these with automatic gearboxes. No, it's a really impressive car.
Off limits, because we'll get punctures.
Yep, a Porsche one, but perhaps not the one you expected, the Cayman S. In the end, it was just so accessible, so usable, so much fun. We all enjoyed driving it. Okay, it was lacking a limited slip differential, which would have helped on the day, but given that it hasn't got one, it's a remarkable result. This is one of the best cars that Porsche's ever made. It shows in many ways how the 911 is a bit obsolete. Even though the 911 Turbo was a great car on the day, it couldn't match the Cayman S's all-round appeal. Everyone found it a great drive, and it's a worthy winner.